Hi guys, how you going? Oh God, I haven't done this in a while, but I've had a bit of inspiration and well, I've been looking at RuneScape. Oh, people say I say that wrong, RuneScape. And I've been playing the game a lot. Well, not that lot, but some. I've been looking into a way of how to find the best shop items that you can buy and then flip to profit on the Grand Exchange. So what I usually do is I go in here, I go in the wiki, I'll type in steel arrow. I'll be like, all right, so it's 15 coins on the Grand Exchange. You can see here, right? And then, oh look, item sources. So this is where they're from, or shop locations. So you can see what they're sold at in the wiki. So my idea was to create a tool that is going to do this automatically, or somewhat automatically. It's going to be made up of a couple parts. We're going to have the API client, which connects to old school RuneScape API that we find here. And so we're going to have an API client that interacts with this catalog endpoint, gets the catalog, gets the items, right? Then the second component is we're going to have a API data warehouse type of deal. So we're going to data warehouse and store in a SQL database the results from this API. Then the third component of this is a old school RuneScape wiki client, which we can use to query the wiki. So we can actually use this wiki lookup, and there's this whole sort of API behind it that we can use, which we can find here. So we can check all this sort of stuff. Yeah, anyway, so it's this media query API that we're going to use. So this can be used for us to basically search for items, but at the same time, we can use it to search for shop prices of items. Okay. So the third part is we're going to create a API client for the wiki, so we can search for shop prices and all that sort of stuff for various items. Then the fourth part is we're going to create an API wiki data warehouse, so we can pull all that information in and store it in a SQL database. And the final part of this is we're gonna create a front end on it, and I'll make it a website, and you guys can use the website for all your arbitrage and flipping needs. So come and join me on my little old school RuneScape journey. I hope you enjoy. So I started off by looking at the API's documentation, just having a look over the JSON and trying a few of the links there and just making sure it's expected. Fiddling with the parameters of the URL and just trying to see what I could do with it. So I created a new project, put it into a folder where it was organized with all my other Maitland code project, and started off with a class library. I did this so I could reuse the code, turn it into a NuGet package, as well as unit test it. The catalog endpoint requires a category. So first thing to do was get all these categories from the wiki and chuck them into an enum in the project. But the categories obviously weren't formatted to go into an enum. So I opened up old trusty Excel, pasted the categories in, and then I began writing a formula which is going to format the category in a way that it can be pasted into an enum. I then started to manually fix the spacing and all that sort of shit, but realized there was a better way. I Googled Pascal converter online, pasted it in that way, and then everything was fine and dandy, except for just a few little things like those dashes you see there. Easier to fix a couple up than every single one up. Now I decided to use a NuGet library called Refit to really condense and simplify writing the API code. All you really have to do with Refit is define an interface with a few attributes here and there, as you see here, and you're good to go. So the next thing I had to do was map the JSON response to a C# object. So I've got a tool that I use called quicktype.io, and you literally just paste the JSON response in there, and then it turns it into a C# object automatically for you. I got copy it in, and there we go. However, you might notice, and this happens a lot with various APIs, all different companies that I've used, they don't have a consistent schema. And as you can see here, the price for the current or today price can be a number or it can be a string. So I was just trying to work out the best way to handle this. Then I created a few helpers for the users of this library when they consume it to easily create the instance of the interface. I implemented a service collection extension as well as a factory pattern. Then using my factory, I created a unit test so I could test whether or not the client actually works. I also wanted to check to see if my solution for handling the difference in model for the price value, if that worked. After running the unit test, I found that the enum that I was using was sending through to the API as a string value, but we needed it to send through as an integer. So I had to implement a query parameter converter, which instead of doing a .to string on the enum, would convert it to an int and then do a .to string. So now that I know that endpoint is working, the catalog endpoint, I moved on to the items endpoint, creating a unit test that looks quite similar and then just running it and making sure it works. It was here I realized that the refit library doesn't actually use Newtonsoft.json, it uses system.text.json. So I updated JSON properties to JSON property name and all the various Newtonsoft types to the equivalent system.text.json type, as well as making the price a JSON element. And that solved the issue of having an integer or a string in one type of property value. And then finally, I pushed this to GitHub so you guys can have the code and do whatever the hell you want with it. But that's it for this first part of the series. I hope to see you next time when we actually create the data warehouse. See you later.